going on, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Panel B podcast. I'm your host, Alex Jankowski, joined by analysts Stephen Buchanan.
Hello.
Julian Edlow.
Hello.
How we feeling today, fellas? We got updated gain on the camera, so I wore something that pops. You guys are still a little drab in your colored clothing.
It's a dreary day.
I'm going right into fashion. That's what the people are here for, fashion advice.
You can't wear that.
I can.
It's weird how when I go 0-2, you want to jump right to the picks, and when I go 2-0, now we're going to start the show talking fashion.
Oh, I went 2-0 too. I mean,
you go 2-0 every week.
Exactly. Yeah.
You need to start going to Vegas.
No IP, Bukes. That's not IP. That's a city name.
I think I went 1-1.
You bet on the Cardinals, so
that was a loss. I forget what the other one was though.
Well, let me set the table here so folks know at least where they want to skip around to. We will, of course, start off by breaking down the week that was in the NFL. Breaking news that did just come through: Vladimir Tarasenko is out for 5 months for the Blues. That stinks. These guys are not hockey analysts by any means, though, so we will not discuss it at all.
I mean,
but it stinks.
It's not good for the Blues. They're going to have to get somebody else up there, so let's see what happens.
Don't even try it.
Wow, expert
that was
analysis.
It's a NFL Monday. It's middle of the World Series. It's NBA underway.
All right,
Thanks.
Julian just did my job for me, so there you go.
Yeah, there's the table. The table is set.
And that is what we will talk about. We will talk NFL. We will talk MLB. We will talk a little bit on the NBA, wrapping it back up with Monday night breakdown for the Monday Night Football matchup. I know you're all very excited for it. And then we will do an all-time stack. Got another NFL team coming up. I assume there will be some disagreements in a couple key spots. Very excited to talk about that. But let's talk about the week that was. We can wrap it into our picks. We've already kind of hinted at how some of us did. So we'll start with you, Steven.
It was an okay week. Not the best week.
It was a 50-50 week.
Not the worst week, so that's okay. Are we talking about our picks or just how we did individually?
They are one and the same, are they not?
Okay. I'm trying to figure out what my second pick was because I had Arizona covering.
Come on, Bukes.
What? You know what? I give out so many picks between all these shows that I do, all the content that I provide here.
Wow, what a humble brag. What a humble brag.
I know the Cardinals was one. They did not cover. They did not come close to covering. That wasn't even close, which I was surprised about because when we made the picks, it wasn't official that Drew Brees was in yet. So it was under the assumption that Teddy Bridgewater.
Didn't you take the Niners?
Yes. Thank you. That was an easy one.
Not if you don't remember it.
It was the Niners. But back to Arizona. So, Michael Thomas getting covered by Patrick Peterson. That didn't end up going out too well. He actually caught all 4 of his targets when Peterson was covering Thomas for a touchdown, 40 yards. That wasn't great. No Kamara. But still, the Arizona could just not do anything. Their offensive line has just been such an issue. And I said this a couple weeks ago. The Saints' defensive line just doesn't get enough credit for what they do. I think it's one of the best defensive lines in the league. And they still just don't get talked up about. But Kyler Murray just didn't look good. It's constantly on the run. Just dump offs off the sideline. It just wasn't a good game for him. So that didn't go too well. The Niners just absolutely blew the doors off the Panthers. I thought they were going to win this game, but not as much as it is. And Julie and I were talking about this watching the game. They have to be considered legit now. Like, it's past the point where it's like, well, have they played anybody? Is there anything that they could maybe stop this? They just look legit from top to bottom. The offense could use some work. People are going to be all excited about Tevin Coleman. You're not going to get that every week, but their defense is absolutely legit. They're right up there with the Patriots for me.
Sure, and if you're going to say that they weren't legit and the Patriots were, then, I mean, look at the schedule of both teams, you know? Like, at some point you just have to say, like, there's a lot of bad teams in the NFL. There, done.
Yep.
You're going to play bad teams, it's going to happen.
Right.
I mean, you know, it is what it is. I mean, the Patriots, though, will get a test against Baltimore. And the Niners, you know, will still have to face at least the Seahawks and, you know, and the Rams as well. So, like, again, so they will face a little bit of competition. But at the end of the day, like, when you are a good team, the good teams still win those games. And this was up against a pretty good Carolina team. Certainly Kyle Allen was, you know, one of the better.
Kyle Allen
if not
was
for
undefeated coming into the game.
Yeah, if not for Teddy Bridgewater, then,
teams.
you know, we'd be talking more about Kyle Allen, and obviously you have Christian McCaffrey as well. And that defense, did what no other defense could, and it made Kyle Allen look like a really bad backup quarterback. So kudos. Cam Newton should probably buy him something because he's probably not worked his way back as a starter.
Good Sunday for favorites. They went 7-6 against the spread, but they went 11-2 straight up. And you know favorites are going 11-2 straight up. That means it's a good day for the heavy favorites money line parlay, which hits for the second consecutive week. It is back on track. It is a rumbling.
Who's going to stop it?
It is a rumbling train just coming right down the pipe and is going to pick up some momentum here over the course of the season, in my opinion. What do we have? Vikings, relatively easy win on Thursday Night Football. Saints, easy win over the Cardinals.
And then Rams and Patriots.
Rams didn't have to sweat that one. Patriots didn't really have to sweat that one. It was a pretty sweat-free heavy favorites money line parlay. That's how you draw it up. That's how it's designed to go.
You say you didn't have to sweat out the Patriots one. They went to the half, 17-7? Like, it was still relatively close.
Okay, but
when Baker Mayfield is throwing underhand passes into the face of the defense, I wasn't really too concerned.
That was amazing. That was unbelievable.
It's like we just fumbled 2 plays in a row. I think we're supposed to do that. Here's an underhand pass to your face.
I guess the point was that game was a lot closer at the half than it felt like it should have been, at least.
Sure.
I guess.
Yeah, but you could say in spite of that,
yes,
it was still a 10-point game. But come on.
And
then Green Bay.
Green Bay wound up working out. I got a bad number on it, actually, at the time because of the 4.5 we took on the show. And then when Mahomes was kind of still in question all week, you could have locked that up on like Thursday or Friday for 3.5. Yeah. And then it wound up closing at like 5.5 and came all the way back with Mahomes out. So that was a weird line. But good thing is no matter which number you got, you hit that one. So.
All right, and ho-hum. 2-0 Chargers. One of those favorites that did not win straight up was the Chicago Bears. We knew this game was going to have a wacky finish no matter what. I just liked it to be less than 3 points, and that was the case. So Chargers +4 covers for sure. And then the over 46, Tampa Bay at Tennessee. Sweated that one a little bit. Tampa Bay settling for field goals a lot early on, but Tampa Bay, as long as they're not, even if they're only throwing interceptions, that's helping, the overall over-under there. So the over 46 hits in that one. So updated standings, Julian and Bukes both 6-6. The race for second place is a very exciting one. And I'm at 12-0. Let's talk
Worth mentioning for my loyal Twitter followers that we had a 9-3 plus 10.1 unit day. Those don't come around often.
What, the positive records or the...
A 10-unit day is a big day.
That is a big day. Congratulations.
Congratulations to my followers.
Congrats for following me.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the big performers on DraftKings. If we want to touch on some duds, feel free. Mike Evans leads the way. Aaron Jones sneaks in as well. Another big week for Latavius Murray. Something to monitor there. Who stood out to you the most? You already brought up Tevin Coleman as well as that being unsustainable. Some injuries, though, and a quick turnaround on Thursday night.
Yep.
Kyle Shanahan loves him some Tevin Coleman, though. There's no doubt about that.
No, he does. And Wilson got his, head cracked or whatever it was. You and I kind of spoke about it. They said it looked serious.
Right.
And then 2 minutes later, he's high-fiving teammates on the sideline. So, either somebody's lying or he has an amazing comeback abilities. But this is just a problem with the 49ers backfield. And we've mentioned this before. It's just there's too many guys in the mix here with Wilson, Breida, Coleman, Mozart is in there too. It's just kind of one of those who's going to go off on a given day. And Coleman was the guy this week against Carolina because on a normal basis, you're not going to get 11 carries for 105 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's just not sustainable in a running back committee that has realistically 3 to 4 guys in the mix who are active. So, Coleman was by far the hot hand. They kept going with him, and that's what you get as a result. But it's just not one you want to be pushing all your chips into on a week-to-week basis.
I like Breida a lot. I think he's a good back, but it seems like Coleman is the lead, at least, of the committee and going to be the red zone guy, which has a good amount of value.
Also remiss if we don't mention, on the other side of that Thursday night matchup are the Cardinals, who lost Chase Edmonds, already were without David Johnson, reportedly right now in agreement to trade for Kenyon Drake, who could step in right away and start on Thursday. It's a brutal matchup, obviously, against the 49ers. I don't think you play anybody, really. I mean, you're playing Showdown. You have to pick somebody, but at least one player on the Cardinals. But moving forward, let's assume that this means David Johnson's going to be out for a while. Where do we see Kenyon Drake kind of fitting in, or what his prospects look like? Sharing a backfield potentially with Chase Edmonds, or just, overall how we look rest of the season.
Well, it's just one bad offensive line to another one.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like he's getting much of an upgrade. It's not like you're going from the
Potential
Dolphins.
coach upgrade.
Like, well, sure. Well, yeah, okay, fine.
Supposed.
But it's not like you're going from the Dolphins to the Colts. Like, you're going from the Dolphins to the Cardinals, who are having all the offensive lineman issues that they have. So, surrounding himself, yes, he's in a much better spot. But, performance-wise, I mean, he was doing okay with the Dolphins for relative to what the environment he was in, but I feel like he's not going to get much of an upgrade in Arizona. And then once David Johnson is healthy, do they want to just take Edmonds out of the mix? I mean, at least he's shown he's capable in the 1.5 games that we've really seen him. But it's, to me, it kind of feels like a couple-week rental, at least for now, with the information we have, and he'll just kind of mix in with Edmonds.
Julian, with Latavius Murray now having back-to-back really strong performances, does that scare you at all about what Kamara's workload could look like when he comes back?
I think it does, because this team, it's almost the same way that they've been so good with Bridgewater. Not that scares Drew Brees, because Drew Brees is the guy, but running back is such a different position. Just what have you done for me lately? And if you're a guy that can do that, back-to-back games of 35-plus DK points, which the Saints don't care about that, but they care about all the production that he got during that time. We care about that. It just makes you think, why do you need to, if you have such a talented, rare type of back in Kamara, you don't need to run him into the ground anymore. And he's a guy that they've always wanted to, even behind Mark Ingram, feature for fewer carries because of the way that he plays and, limit his risk for injury. So now that they've seen Murray play a much better role than we saw Mark Ingram in, really, or do a much better job of playing that role than Mark Ingram ever did, we could definitely see a 50-50 timeshare after this, because why not?
Right.
It just if you're coaching the Saints, it just makes perfect sense to split the carries with two extremely productive backs.
Yeah, and I mean, they keep a lot of that is offensive line, similar to your point. But then also they keep winning, and they're in a division now that's not going to require 12, 13 wins to win it, right? Like, they take care of business probably.
I guess we'll see where Carolina is, but
but I don't know.
You're right.
I think,
you're right.
Yeah.
We'll see if
devil's
Cam
advocate.
can get back to being Cam, but Cam hasn't looked like
see
Cam.
if Cam gets back to being the starting quarterback of the Panthers.
Exactly. I think they will go back to him when he's healthy. I think especially now with Kyle Allen's game, even against a top 2 defense in the league, that gives you, at least if you needed it, some kind of hook to say, okay, let's get Cam back there if he's healthy.
Yeah.
But he hasn't looked like Cam for a year and a half. So, and the Falcons, complete free for all. Don't even know if that team is going to compete again.
Yeah.
I love betting against the Falcons.
Yeah, they're a mess, and then the Buccaneers, same story, same Jameis.
Real quick.
Yeah.
460 yards for Schaub last night, yesterday.
Shouts out.
What?
Trade Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I saw that come across the screen. I just kept
And guess what? It
watching
didn't make
that
a
game.
difference, because that defense is the worst.
So it's interesting, because I heard the rumblings this morning that maybe the Bears are interested in trading for Matt Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Which, wow, that would be something. Ryan with the Bears.
The Bears should be interested in trading for anybody. Mitch Trubisky's horrible. And
I know,
they have
right.
a good team, but they're in the division with the Vikings and Packers. You're probably now done.
Yeah.
And not going to make the postseason. So you're probably a couple weeks late on this if you just could have looked in the mirror and said,
and for
our
Atlanta,
quarterbacks stink. But
yeah, and for Atlanta, nuke it. Why not?
yeah.
You're clearly starting
For
over
sure.
from a coaching philosophy standpoint. And he is, and Matt Ryan at this point in his career is, let's Super Bowl or bust. I mean, he's reaching really the end, starting to crest over his prime. So get some kind of return for it, go for it. But
It's just hard to imagine him in any other uniform. Kind of like with Brady and the Patriots, like you think of Matt Ryan, he's a Falcon. Like he's always been a Falcon. So to think of him in a Bears uniform, huh?
Whatever.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know why the Bears haven't done Eli Manning, Cam Newton, Matt Ryan. Get someone.
Somebody, yes. I agree.
You can fully give up on Trubisky. You can flush your number 2
tomorrow?
pick.
Deadline is tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Yep.
We shall see if we see any moves, but understand that when you have a GM who has tenure, thus is on the hook for these players that he drafted and traded up to draft, forgetting that he was the same guy who handed Mike Glennon. There's, sometimes you're
if you can't admit your mistake with Trubisky and make a trade for somebody, then it's worse than trying to back your pick still. A pick that could have been Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes.
Whoops.
I mean, look at we got news today. The Pirates firing their GM, the same GM who traded away Garrett Cole and then traded Austin Meadows and Tyler Glasnow to try and get Archer to make another run. So that's, you trade Garrett Cole thinking, okay, it's a rebuild. Your 2 best pieces you then send because you're like kind of doing okay. I mean, look at the Bears. They were a good team last year, and a lot of it had nothing to do with Mitchell Trubisky. It had to do with the defense scoring at an absolutely unsustainable rate.
Yep.
But then you get glossy-eyed over that, and it's like, well, we can recapture this somehow. Division's not, that great, and, you don't want to admit that type of failure on that scale when you're just, so close away from what it was last year. But no, I mean, I agree that there's underlying issues there, and you're always going to take these, 85 Bears, type of defenses to actually make you competitive. Let's shift, though, to the World Series a little bit, unless anyone had any big other notes from NFL that they wanted to talk about. Well, don't worry, folks. We'll talk Monday night later on.
That's what they're here for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're,
all right, cool.
We're good. We'll look at week 9
now,
on
when
Wednesday.
we last spoke back on Wednesday,
have things changed?
Things have changed quite a little. It was a 1-0 series lead for the Nationals. We thought they could go up 2-0 and said at that point you take the Astros if the Nationals go up 2-0.
Yeah, we actually kind of had a really smart World Series script almost that we all liked of backing Strasburg in Game 2 on the road at plus 160, which is again going to be this Game 6 matchup in Houston on Tuesday, is Strasburg plus 160 again against Verlander. And then if Houston went down 2-0, considering Houston on the live series line, which I think I guessed would be around plus 180, after it happened, it turned out it was around plus 225, even better. And we said they could compete in Washington, and then they just win 3 in a row.
Yep. Road team winning every game so far.
Amazing.
In the series.
Amazing.
Then on top of that, the news yesterday with Max Scherzer waking up unable to move. You actually saw, if you saw the side camera, like the injection point in his neck, like it looked like Bukes' Frankenstein shirt yesterday. There was like a hole in his neck. It was no joke, and I think we know. Yeah, I mean, that's a shout out to your fashion, man.
Mattress Mac. Messing around with Max Scherzer's mattress got him a bad night's sleep. Guy needs to win $1 million bets. I would do the same
very
thing.
House of Cardsian approach there. And a guy who does everything at this like intensity level of like 11 out of 10, so his spasms have to be the absolute worst.
Well, somebody brought up a good point. Like, he pitched the broken face.
Right. We talked about that on Panel B back in the day.
Yep.
And still pitched through it. And if you literally cannot move, you cannot pitch. And they don't know if he'll be ready for Game 7 yet. So you might not have him at all.
It's crazy.
Let's talk about the game at hand, though. You do have, now this game's tomorrow, it's not tonight.
Yep.
As of now, Strasburg on the road is a favorite, minus, sorry, I was looking at the run line there. Apologies.
Oh.
He is an underdog, plus 155.
Okay,
Verlander, minus 180. If you want to go to the series line, which you missed your chance.
A while unless
back.
you like the Nationals, then you haven't missed your chance. Unless you want the
Nationals, who are plus 650, minus 1,000 on the Astros. Okay, well, if you want to consider that, you get this game and then just say, hey, look, maybe Scherzer's back or maybe it's one game. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, so you got Strasburg going. Right. He's been lights out The entire playoff run. He's pitched 5 games, 28 innings, 6 runs allowed, 40 strikeouts through 28 innings. Now, the Astros are a tough team to strike out, but Strasburg has done it against his team. I don't feel good about Verlander. I don't know how you can feel good about Verlander right now. I get it's the playoffs and the mentality that, Verlander gets it done in the playoffs. He's not got it done here. Through the entire playoffs, 30 innings, 14 runs, 25 hits, 6 home runs allowed. 6. That is a ton of home runs to allow in the playoffs because you're going against the best teams here.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, if you think they can beat Verlander, I mean, everything's on the table in Game 7. You could see everybody in that game. So, it's almost impossible to predict. But if you like them in this game, why would you not take the series line? Right. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of value on that. At plus 650, that's a lot more than I expected, quite honestly. I just don't think you can trust Verlander. I'm not on that train right now.
Interrupt, and we'll get Julian's thoughts. Just real quick, we do have another trade. The Giants and Jets doing a deal together. The Jets trading Leonard Williams to the Giants for a 3rd-round pick this year and a 5th in 2021. Defenses, 2 bad teams. We don't have to worry much about it. But, Julian, your thoughts?
Yeah,
on the baseball, not the Leonard Williams.
Yep. So I don't have any thoughts on Leonard Williams.
Knee-jerk reaction to that trade.
Who wins? Draft grades.
My thoughts are that the road trend is going to continue in Game 6. I really like Strasburg at plus 160. That's probably something that I'll wind up playing. It's also a Verlander fade because he's way too overpriced at minus 180. Yeah. But I do like Steve's point that if you like them in Game 6, then you might as well take that. What is it? 600?
650.
650
plus 650 series line. Like, wow.
That's crazy.
Then you have them plus 650 in a
for
in
a team
game
that's been the comeback kings this entire postseason.
Yeah,
and
so there could be some kind of hedging opportunity if you do hit on Strasburg plus 160, and then you have Washington plus. You hit on Strasburg plus 160, and then you have Washington plus 650 in Game 7. Mm-hmm. You will have a hedging opportunity on Houston. Yeah, I guess I have to think a little bit more about how you would play that whole thing out. But yeah, now's the time to take Washington. Going back to Washington was the time to take Houston.
Sure.
And now we've done a complete 180, and now we're on the other side of this whole thing, and we've just been playing the value all along.
Yeah, and it's been a fun series. I know, it's funny though because as Buke said the last show, the longer this goes, the more it helps the Astros. And on top of that, we now have Scherzer's status for Game 7 completely up in the air. However, when the value is what the value is, and you're talking about the highest variance sport in the world, the Astros do look, they're starting to look like the Astros again. Yordan Alvarez homers, 3-hit game as well. But again, you're just buying into the value. It's not even at this point necessarily about any individual.
I mean, my prediction would be that Houston is going to win this in 7 games. Mm-hmm. That'll be the first home win of the entire World Series will come at Game 7 in Houston. Now, if you feel that way and you want to take Strasburg plus 160 in Game 6 and that turns out to be a win, and you have that plus 650, that allows you pretty much to just make a big bet to back Houston in Game 7 with free money because you have the other team plus 650.
Yep. And I think I have this done outright that Greinke would be the starter for the Astros in Game 7.
Yes.
If it lines up correctly. It's not like he's been that great either.
He was
but he got him back
on
track
in that Game 3. And then, with the Nationals, it's either Anibal Sanchez or it's some Max Scherzer. I would be shocked if he's healthy enough to pitch a full allotment that Max Scherzer would pitch.
I mean, once you get to Game 7, I assume it's just all hands on deck with the only question mark
it's really
being
what it comes down to. It's a bullpen game.
Being Scherzer. But, Strasburg could go an inning. That happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the last game of the year. It's not
and
worry about
Cole would almost certainly be behind Greinke.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, why
Not
wouldn't he?
almost certainly. He would be available.
Yeah,
for a couple
especially if you're
innings.
not going to probably invest the hundreds of
Oh
millions
yeah,
in him.
yeah,
though.
exactly. We're running you. We're running you out here, buddy. Why don't you give us 4 or 5 bullpen innings?
Yeah, the native Valdi method. All right, let's talk. We'll touch on the NBA. You know, the NBA is off and running. The Warriors are not off and running yet. They look terrible. They're actually underdogs on the road in New Orleans, facing a Pelicans team that doesn't even have Zion
Drew Holiday's
Williamson.
not even
Drew Holiday
confirmed in. He's day to day.
Right. I mean, the big story for me, of course, is the early narrative that we do get tonight, and that is Russell Westbrook. He's in Houston. He's not going to Oklahoma City, but he's in Houston welcoming Chris Paul and the Oklahoma City Thunder. You know, Julian, we'll kick it to you first as our resident NBA expert. I mean, you know, what are your expectations from those two guys tonight, and just what are your thoughts so far on how the season's playing out?
Yeah, in terms of this, I don't have quite as much of a feel for a narrative. I think it's just going to be a relatively normal game. Chris Paul will probably get some cheers in Houston. He was there for a little while, never did too much, but was a fine player. Westbrook faces his old team, but obviously I think that'll be different when he returns to Oklahoma City, where he played his entire career, rather than them coming to him in Houston. Houston hasn't been good against the spread. They only beat New Orleans by 3. They lost a 16-point lead to the halftime lead to the Bucks, who came back and closed that game out without Giannis after fouling out, even though Giannis was spectacular in that game. So I think Houston's been an overrated team so far, just because people want to bet on, oh wow, they have Westbrook and Harden, when the reality is that you're only getting hurt by one of those guys at a time. They really don't do that much together that hurts you. You'll get an occasional fast break that, you know, is special because it's from those two players, but for the most part, it's one guy or the other hurting you. But speaking of overrated teams, the Warriors are by far the most overvalued team right now. This spread is starting to come around to what the Warriors have been. 4.5-point dogs in New Orleans. I don't think any of us saw it getting this bad. But at the same time, they've been failing to cover by over 20 points per game through 2 games. And they're not a happy bunch. D'Angelo Russell gets ejected. Draymond Green says,
dropping F-bombs.
We effing suck after games. So, yeah, not good for them. I don't know if I want to take the Pelicans minus 4.5, though. That is a lot, especially with Drew Holiday in doubt. So what I will say is their defense has been horrible, really bad. And the Pelicans are one of the fastest-paced teams in the league with or without Drew Holiday. Pelicans team total is 120.5. They are averaging 120.3 points per game this season. I think that they're going to score a lot of points against the Warriors, whether they win or not.
You know, it's interesting too. I mean, Steve Kerr is like talking about he's looking forward to the beer in his fridge, you know, after the game, and it's all very Steve Kerr-esque, and it's fun, and it's, you know, it's funny, it makes for good sound bites, but you almost wonder, like, I mean, are they just going to take this year off? Obviously you don't have Clay for the entire season. You've played a lot of basketball over the past couple of years. You know, maybe let's hit the reset and come back next year. But Bukes, it's kind of funny to me, like, you know, the arc of the Warriors, they were like everyone's darling. Then they got Kevin Durant. Everyone hated them. And now it's that kind of schadenfreude of being like, now you get to watch them stink, and a little bit of fun in that, at least.
I mean, I don't follow basketball as closely as Julian does, but just seeing, you know, the
But you're a lover of good storylines.
Of course. But, yeah, I mean, Golden State was this offensive juggernaut last year. I was just checking last year. I didn't even realize how poor they were against the spread last year, 44, 58, and 2. I didn't realize it was that bad.
Because they finally got, like, they were dinged up last year, so they were continuously overvalued, but you could understand the overvaluing because they still had all the weapons. But you could never be higher on them. They were back-to-back champions.
Yeah, sure.
And still had all the pieces, so it kind of made sense. And it made sense that they lost in the finals because all of the playing into the finals every year and how hurt they actually were that year. Durant was out multiple times. All those guys were dinged up. Curry's always dinged up. Finally caught up to them, at least against the spread. So they just kind of limped along in the regular season and still had the most wins in the West. They were the 1 seed in the West. So now they just have no chance at doing any of that because their talent level has dropped so much.
But it's so apparent in basketball how much a team's fortunes can sway in just 1 year. we'll look at the Golden State Warriors. The Raptors are off to an okay start, but they're another team. The Nets, obviously, the hype on them has been high all season, all throughout the offseason. But yeah, this is pretty interesting from betting perspective, from just a basketball perspective. But it's a rough start for the old Warriors.
Yeah. All right. Now the moment everyone's been waiting for, Monday Night Football. Ladies and gentlemen, Mason Rudolph and the Steelers taking on Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Dolphins. Exciting times. We have a spread that is at 14 points. The Steelers haven't played in forever.
Yeah.
It feels like they were on a bye. Now they're on Monday. So minus 14, over or under 43.5. Guys, we can keep this real simple. We can keep it real quick, but anything catch your eye. I mean, the spreads are too tough when they're this big.
I will say, though, we were talking about this before the show, Fitzpatrick didn't look bad in his last start.
Right.
He actually has the most passing yards against the Bills so far this season.
Coming off
282.
Back-to-back covers.
Yep.
Those Miami Dolphins.
All right.
They are.
No, they are.
2 touchdown going up against a quarterback in Mason Rudolph that hasn't done anything.
The Steelers are definitely a tough opponent to it. They have a very good secondary. So, I don't think Fitzpatrick is going to be as effective as he was last week, but he's in consideration. He's a lot better than if Rosen would be under center. Preston Williams is someone I still keep kind of going to. I know he really hasn't made that much of an impact, but at least it's been consistent between Rosen and Fitzpatrick that he's still getting those targets. So he's someone I would be looking at too. But, I mean, this is fairly simple. You're playing the Steelers defense. You're playing James Conner. Fill out the rest. But, I don't see Miami having a chance in this game. Obviously, the spread reflects that. But, yes, what a primetime game.
So I guess from the gambling side of things, road underdogs are 51-28 against the spread this season. They're 30-13 against the spread coming off a loss, as the Dolphins always are, which is also one of the reasons why some of these numbers kind of don't apply to the Dolphins. They're one of the exceptions with these the Bengals and the Redskins and these other teams who are the worst of the worst. But that said, if I was betting the spread in this game, I would try and maybe buy the hook and get Miami at 14.5 if I was going to bet it. I don't really like betting on the spread in this game.
No.
They have been 2 under teams, but now it's Fitzpatrick and Mason Rudolph's coming back, so that's kind of a messy situation to get involved with too. It's just not a great game to bet.
Yeah.
But the Steelers should win. I don't think Miami's going to win.
Come on,
so
let's
if you
hear
look
it.
at it, if you look at it that way, this is not an official anything, but if you wanted to play some money lines, you do have San Francisco and Arizona on Thursday night. So if you wanted to piece those two together, you're already at minus 230. So if there's
the mini heavy favorite money line.
the mini Monday to Thursday money line parlay, I don't know if you want to take minus 230. So maybe if there's something else you like that you want to throw in there, but those seem like 2 solid pieces that you can put in there. I don't know if you want to look to next Sunday for the next piece, but if there's something else you like this week, like, I don't know, you like the Astros or whatever that you want to mix in there, those 2 teams should win.
All right, let's hear it. Miami team total 14.5.
No. I don't mess with Fitzmagic.
Yeah, I mean, I would pick the over 43.5 just because it is Fitzmagic. So he's throwing a pick 6 or he's throwing a touchdown. He's got nothing left to lose. His belly's full of birthday cake, and and he's just chucking it. He's enjoying life. Like I
Plus
wish
money on the over.
the man lives his life with a vigor that I just would love to have. What is it? 14.5.
Yep.
Money
Plus
on the
104
over?
for the over.
I don't know.
I like that.
Come on.
I told you I don't mess with Fitzmagic.
That's a backdoor cover waiting to
Coward.
happen there. All right, that's, I think, all we need to discuss with Monday night. Let us hope that we never see the likes of this type of game ever again, but I'm sure we will because that's just the way this year has gone. Let's go to our all-time stack. Another NFL team. We'll start mixing in others at some point, but while we got the NFL still, let's enjoy the NFL. Denver Broncos. Exciting team. The Denver Broncos all-time stack. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and flex. Steve is trying to remember his passcode so he can get his extensive notes here at the ready. You got him open. The auto lock is not on. All right,
Nope.
You go.
Okay. I think the first couple of positions going to be fairly.
Nope.
Oh,
They won't be.
you don't have Joe Flacco at quarterback?
We overthought it and we both went contrarian with Joe Flacco. No, I went Drew Lock, sorry. It's a Drew Lock Paxton Lynch hybrid.
Well, I went the guy who drafted him, was John Elway.
Okay. See, I didn't go John Elway. So.
Really? Are you going Peyton? Well, we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to why he's the right answer later.
I mean, so
make
basically,
your case.
So basically, they both have 2 Super Bowl wins.
Okay.
But the tiebreaker for me is that obviously Elway just dominates in passing yards.
Does he?
If you're,
Yeah.
I mean, all
so
time.
this is where we every week just write the rules to ourselves to whatever works on the argument. Mine is that okay, maybe from a longevity standpoint he does, but from a single season it's not even close.
Okay, but I thought we were talking all time.
Okay, well then that's your argument, and that's a fine argument to have if that's what it's going to be.
I have Terrell Davis at running back.
Here, do you take into account his terrible track record as a GM as well?
No.
Okay.
No. I mean, if we're going to do off-field stuff, I might have to go back and change all my stacks. Like, Lenny Moore is a good charitable guy.
Yeah.
Like, I would actually put him
Lenny Moore and Alan Page are still probably our 2 best picks ever for these
All right,
stats.
shut up. Terrell Davis.
Don't say coaching.
I have Terrell Davis at running back.
Yep.
Obviously, all-time leading rusher. MVP Super Bowl 32.
Yep.
I have Demaryius Thomas at wide receiver.
Sell me.
So, individually, he holds 16 Broncos franchise records, first and foremost, okay? I think that's pretty that's pretty impressive.
He made Tim Tebow look good. That might have been all you had to say.
Met's great.
Everyone
Don't forget
talks
that.
about Tim Tebow's 80-yard touchdown pass in overtime. It was like a 5-yard slant, and Demaryius Thomas ran 75 yards and outran the entire defense.
Correct.
So, I'm guessing you're leaning Rod Smith.
I'm not.
Okay. But so the argument was going to be that Rod Smith had 68 touchdowns through 183 games.
Mm-hmm.
Demaryius Thomas had 60 through 125.
Sure.
So a lot more production in a shorter amount of time. But in the turn, I had Rod Smith in the flex.
Okay.
Because that just makes sense. But I think what Demaryius Thomas did with the Broncos is not as close. Not overall, Rod Smith is probably their best receiver, but Demaryius Thomas is right there. But he did other things better than Rod Smith did. So like with the touchdowns, short amount of time. And I don't want to say he was the face of the franchise, but he was the face of the receivers for years. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Don't you think so?
As the best wide receiver on a team, he was the face of the Are you saying he's the face of wide receivers in all of football during those years?
No.
Or just the Broncos? So he was the wide receiver 1 for the Broncos. That's fine. That's a fine argument. I don't disagree. Obviously it helps going from Tim Tebow to Peyton Manning, no doubt. But, I mean, he at least put up the numbers with the Tim Tebows of the world, whereas guys like Eric Decker, Julius Thomas did not once they did not have Peyton Manning as their quarterback. So I'll give it to you.
Thanks.
We only have one of the same, which is good, though. You like differentiation. Julian, how do you go?
Yeah, so Peyton Manning's the quarterback. He had the best season. He had the most upside for I do this kind of like I'm playing a player in an individual game from like their best season is what I'm kind of targeting, and that's Peyton Manning, who had that resurgence in Denver before completely falling apart. Had some of his best individual season numbers with Denver. And to do wide receiver first, I was between Rod Smith and Demaryius Thomas, and I actually did side with Demaryius Thomas because he was very close to Rod Smith's numbers in about 2/3 of the games. So I thought that gave him the higher individual game upside. But that was a very close call. But I just thought you have the higher upside there for a 100-yard game to break an 80-yard touchdown. If he can do it with Tim Tebow, he can do it with anyone.
Yeah, that's a pretty legendary touchdown.
It was a legendary touchdown. I think Terrell Davis is the easy call at running back. None of us are going to argue with that. He's pretty far and above the all-time guy and the best guy at any individual time.
You could make the argument he was the start of like running backs don't matter though, because if you look at the stretch that Mike Shanahan had after that, and you factor in Davis was a 6th-round pick, a special teamer who just came in and all of a sudden gashing. Don't doubt him. I mean, he's certainly talented. Carried really Elway to those Super Bowls.
The first kind of plug-in.
But then after when you get
running
the
back.
Reuben Drones, Mike Anderson, Olandis Garias of the world.
No, that is a very good point.
And then flex.
So flex, I think you're by far getting the most value by taking Shannon Sharpe at tight end, because tight end is such a premium position. Now, obviously, we don't want to play him at flex. If you're making a full lineup, he's going to be a guy that you play at tight end, and tight end is a very valuable position to have such an elite weapon at, and Shannon Sharpe is right there at number 3 on the all-time receiving list for Denver. What does he have? 675 receptions, 8,439 yards, 55 touchdowns in that span. He's right up there with Rod Smith and Demaryius Thomas in terms of all-time receivers there, but you get him at a position that is far more valuable to roster him at.
Probably very expensive.
Maybe.
In addition, in comparison to the other tight ends. All right, here we go. Quarterback, it's Peyton Manning. You look at single season, and I know they're different eras, but not really. Single season yardage leaders for the Broncos. Number 1 is Peyton Manning. Number 2 is Peyton Manning. Number 3 is Peyton Manning. Then you got Jay Cutler. Then you got Jake Plummer. And then you get to John Elway's best season from a passing yardage standpoint. So, yeah, I get you. He gets the longevity. He had the arm strength. But no, I'm going to go there. I did go Terrell Davis as well. I was a big fan of the late 90s Broncos teams. Terrell Davis, I remember reading an article. As a kid, I got a lot of migraine headaches. He got migraine headaches, had one in the Super Bowl.
That's how you bonded?
Yeah, had one in the Super Bowl where he literally said in the touchdown he scored, he just ran away from the white blobs, which were the Packers were wearing white. As a kid who had a lot of headaches, that always stuck with me, so shouts out to him there. I went off the board with wide receiver with Brandon Marshall.
Yeah.
It went in his prime. You're talking about PPR scoring. Had 21 receptions in one game. Understand? Yeah, he never. Rod Smith and Demaryius Thomas had this better single seasons. Marshall, though, banged up and still produced the 4 through 6 best seasons. But despite playing 15 games in one, 13 in another, also just never had the luxury of quarterback that both Rod Smith and Demaryius Thomas had for the bulk of their careers. You're talking about Kyle Orton. You're talking about Jay Cutler. Yet he still produced. So shouts out to Brandon Marshall for there.
I don't disagree with that.
Flex, I like to have fun with these. Honorable mention to Barrel Guy. Do you guys know Barrel Guy? Have you seen Barrel Guy?
No.
I sent a photo to producer Axel. I'm not sure if they'll post it up here. Maybe they'll do it in post-production. But basically he's completely naked. He just wears a wooden barrel, and he goes to Broncos games. He's just like a really big guy. He's an icon. How can you?
We
not
don't
love
have
it?
to do that to post-production either.
Yeah, we'll see. Search it on your own. Make sure you're not at work where they check histories and whatnot.
Whoops.
But I went again. I said I'm a big fan of the late '90s Broncos. Leader on the defense was Steve Atwater, the safety. Ended Christian Okoye's career basically with a thunderous hit that made the Nigerian Nightmare very scared to run the ball. Hard-hitting safety, knocked out his own player in the Super Bowl against the Packers, where they both had to come off the field for the final play. Emotional leader of that defense, so shouts out to Steve Atwater. That's what I've got. Have you ever been to Denver? I've never been to Denver.
Nah.
Sounds like a really nice city.
I'll
I
never
hear
see
good
it.
things.
I don't like cold. I'm not going to Denver.
You live in Boston.
I mean,
It's freezing.
do you think
here,
it's
man.
much colder
Yeah,
than it is
it's
here?
not my choice.
You really do.
What?
Pack your bags, man. See the world. If you want to leave, you leave.
You want to take my kids?
Okay, well,
Very generous offer.
Hey, they're good kids.
they can come with you. All right. We can talk personal career decisions later. We'll have some bonding. But no, I heard Denver's nice. I don't ski. That's the thing. I don't ski. Leave
Me
it to
either.
Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, I'm too
Thought
fat.
the Rockies would be a little rockier.
John Denver. All right, well, nothing too controversial to end the show.
No, we'll wait till Wednesday.
Steve still hasn't. He threatens to swear on the show at some point, and yet always forgets.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because they just bleep it out. So what's the point?
What's
Bunch
the?
of
All right, folks. Why don't we just?
Sorry.
We'll just end it. Eddie Royal shout out? No one. All right. Okay. Bronco
No.
stacks. They're all there. We went off the board a little bit, but nothing too crazy this time around. Tune back in on Wednesday when we have our crazy stacks. If you have an idea for the stacks, because you're still somehow listening to the show, and we've run out of ideas, so please give us your ideas for your Wednesday
It's
stacks.
gonna be Halloween theme.
All right, it's going to be Halloween themed.
Best Frankensteins.
Sure. For Julian Edlow, Steve Buchanan, I'm Alex Jankowski. Before I forget, don't you forget, though, that the odds and lines are subject to change. Please see website for actual odds. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and would like some help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. We are out. We will see you next time.